photographs are allowed, folks. Members, order, order, order. Members should put away their black, are not allowed to take photographs in here. Order, order, order. On a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, the rules of this House are quite clear. It is an offence to the privileges of a Member of Parliament to in any way physically intimidate them or otherwise interfere with them.
I witnessed the Prime Minister walk over and manhandle the whip of the official opposition, and as he was doing so, he actually pushed my colleague.
I saw the Prime Minister, I would use the word charge across the floor with intent and shove people with the intent of moving the whip down the aisle.
We had the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, step into a group of opposition MPs, push aside members of the NDP opposition, and manhandle.
I was physically here. I saw this from about 10 feet away. I was there. The Prime Minister got out of his seat, crossed the room, went through some MPs, pushed a few out of the way, took the opposition whip by the arm, and pulled him through, pushing an NDP member out of the way.
I witnessed as he strode across the floor with anger fierce in his eyes and face towards...
What I witnessed was the Prime Minister striding across and coming to the group that was gathered and blocking the way of the opposition House Leader. As he strode across, the group moved apart, and he reached through and moved the House Leader through. At the point that he did bump into another member.
When I saw the Prime Minister, someone in this honoured House that we all fought to sit in, to stride across with such purpose towards us, and as he was entering the small circle of us that were standing there, he swore, and he said, "Get the bleep out of the way."
A group of individuals here, and I think the film will show, but certainly there are many other witnesses here who can speak to what they saw take place. And what took place was the Prime Minister physically grabbing people, elbowing people, hauling them down the way, and I'm sure his defense is that he was in some way on their behalf asserting their privileges.
So at the base, Mr. Speaker, just that is unacceptable, and worse, not noticing that the situation was not going down, with the look of a frustrated boxer, went across the room again, went to talk to the NDP, came up into the stairs here to try and speak to the same colleague. It's utterly unacceptable from the Prime Minister. It's an indignity. It's undignified. It's not acceptable for any parliamentarian.
Pushed her into the desk, and in fact, as he was pulling away, pulled her along with him, and pushed her physically into this desk, Mr. Speaker. I am ashamed that, as somebody who sits in this House, to have been witness to the person who holds the highest position in our country, the highest elected position, to have done such an act in this House. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, and we were witnesses in this House, I also want to say that for all of us who witnessed this was deeply traumatic.
I was elbowed in the chest by the Prime Minister, and then I had to leave. It was very overwhelming, and so I left the chamber to go and sit into the lobby. I missed the vote because of this. I just wanted to clarify and make sure it's clear to all the members in the House that did happen.
Mr. Speaker, I have never seen, I've been in this House now for 12 years, I have never seen what just transpired on the House of Commons.
I've been here for 7 months, but I spent 7 years in the National Assembly of Quebec. I was a parliamentarian for 7 years before this, and I have been watching politics for about 40 years now. What we saw earlier, Mr. Speaker, is something I've never seen. It was utterly unacceptable and undignified for any member, and particularly from the Prime Minister of all Canadians. Unacceptable. When we carry the title of Prime Minister of Canada, it is important that we behave in such a way as to represent Canada. This was incredibly. This shows that he is utterly incapable of holding himself as the Prime Minister of Canada.
If one whip walks down before the other and takes their seat, then the Speaker, it's either whip, the Speaker then reads the question and the voting process begins. Nothing else is required. That's what happens. That's happened before. That's happened before. Order, 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 order. It is not appropriate to manhandle other members.
Mr. Speaker, I think all of us agree that any material breach of a member's of Parliament's privilege needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. Now, the Honourable Speaker has said that this behaviour is unacceptable. Obviously, he believes that there's been a breach in those privileges. Does he not agree, Mr. Speaker, that no one, when you have the embodiment of the government involved in stopping a member of Parliament carrying out their duties for their constituents, is there no greater material breach?
Seen and heard evidence from everybody here that makes it apparent that such an occurrence took place, that the member's privileges were violated, as you found in your preliminary finding. And this is a very serious matter, because this isn't something that can be cured by a simple apology. We see that the member's privileges were offended to such a degree that her vote was lost. The most fundamental and basic right of representation in our Westminster parliamentary system.
I want to say that what we're talking about here is a choice. The Prime Minister stood up, made a choice to walk across that aisle, to walk towards those members.
An intentional action by the Prime Minister, which is unacceptable in the House of Commons, the use of physical force. As part of doing that, he knocked one of my colleagues into the desk, physically shoved into the desk. I witnessed this, right? And then she was unable to continue in the House. Her privileges were breached by the physical actions of the Prime Minister. So
I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the comments of all the members who have spoken, and I appreciate the Prime Minister's apology. Having said that, I cannot help but find a prima facie case of a question of privilege, and I call upon the honourable member for York Simcoe to move the appropriate motion.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that finding. I will be brief and simple. I will move that the matter of the physical molestation of the member for Berthier-Masquinage be referred to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs.